Hi everyone, and welcome back to another episode of the Learning FreeCAD for Beginners, where we teach the fundamentals of FreeCAD from a beginner's perspective whilst we learn workflows. In this episode, episode 14, we're going to be learning both a part and a part design workflow. We're going to be using a technical drawing to create this object. I'm going to take you through a number of workflows where we read the technical drawing alongside our modeling, and we can understand the differences between a part design and a part workflow. So I hope you're enjoying this series, and let's have a look at this exercise. If you like what you're seeing, please subscribe to the site. I also have a Ko-Fi or a coffee site that you can donate to if you so desire, and that's at ko-fi.com/MANG0. I also run a Patreon where you can subscribe and get extra content, and that's at www.patreon.com/MangoJellySolutions. Any money that's kindly donated will be used to expand the channel. So before we start modeling, we're going to prepare our workspace, and this will allow us to reference the technical drawing and also model and sketch our model side by side with the reference material. To do that, I'm going to come up to File and come down to Open. And I'm going to pick my technical drawing, which is an SVG. Hit Open. It's going to ask me how I want to open the SVG. And I want to go for the drawing option here. I hit Select. So now I've got our drawing, and I'm going to create a new document. So we've got the drawing, which is our reference material, and our new document. Trouble is, they're not side by side at the moment, they're just in separate tabs. Put them side by side, come up to Windows, and click Tile. That places them side by side. Now, if we want to place them back onto tabs, as you can see, we've still got the tabs down here. We just maximize the window like so. And to place it back into tile mode, just come down to Tile. Now we've got these side by side, I can start sketching. With the reference document, we can zoom in and out by using the scroll wheel on the mouse or using the two fingers on the touchpad of the laptop, and we can click and drag to move this about. Looking at the reference material, we can see we've got a number of dimensions in here, but we are missing dimensions such as the height of this piece here, the base plate, and the position of where this arc starts. So you can see we've got an arc here and we've got this line here. Now thinking about this object, we can tackle it a number of ways. First thing to look at is, do we have symmetry across the object? Which we do. So we're going to tackle it by just doing one half and mirroring it across to the other. Looking at this arc, well, we could create a rotate or even a sweep with this part here. Let's first look at a rotate workflow using the part design. We'll look at this in the part as well and show how both of those workflows differ using part design feature-based modeling compared to the part boolean-based modeling. What I'd like to do first is get an idea of the scale of the object by using some construction geometry in a simple sketch. And also we're going to be working out the basic sizes along here, because we've got this height, we've got the inner height, and we've got the dimensions of this, and we've got a few measurements that we need to work out. We can do this with maths, but I prefer to do it a more visual way. So let's come over to FreeCAD, and I'm going to jump into the sketcher. So now our plan's on the left, but our sketching is on the right. So let's create a new sketch, and we're going to do it along the XZ plane, and hit OK. First task is to get some simple geometry in here for the heights. So we're looking at this height here. Now I'm going to use the create point. And what I'm going to do is attach a point to this line, and this is going to represent this height. We're going to attach another point to represent this inner height, so the height here. And we're going to attach another point, and this is going to be the height of the base. Now let's add the vertical distance. So I'm just going to click on the vertical distance, and I'm going to select the top point and this center point. And this is where we start getting an idea of the scale we're currently at and the heights of the object. So our height is 20 millimeters. So I'm going to type in 20, And from there we can zoom in. And we need to bring this point with us, so that's escape and bringing this point down, like so. And now we can zoom in to get this into the right place. And we can adjust our windows, just give us a bit more space to work with. Now I've got the height in here. That's figure out this height. Now this needs a starting point, and well, we need to figure out where this point is in relation to this point. Now if you look, it's the diameter of the loop that runs this way. So we look down, we've got a diameter here, which is D, which is 5mm. So this is going to be 5mm away, these 2 points here. Let's put a height in there of 5mm, hit enter. So we've got that height there. So that's the diameter of the loop. And the next one, we want the height of 12mm. So taking these 2 points and a height of 12mm in there, and hit OK. That leaves us with these 2 points, and this will be our base height. And we can place a height in here, and you can see that's saying 3mm. If I hit OK, you can see that 3mm for the constraint with index 6 is invalid. And that's because we've got all these heights already constraining this down. If you want to, what we can do is take this, place a height and set this to reference. That'll create a blue constraint in there, which will take, so you can see that 3mm there. We can name these up and use them in our modeling and just add them to the formula if we want to, or we can just reference back to this. This sketch won't actually create part of our model, it's just for reference. And it's just for explaining how we go about figuring out the dimensions for this shape. Let's add another point. I'm going to place the point here. And this is going to be the length. So this length that runs this way, we need to halve that because that's the length here, which is 35mm. So what we can do is hit escape to get the mouse pointer back and take these 2 points and place those at 35, and then we divide that by 2. 17.5mm. So you can do plain maths in there if you don't want to calculate that in your head. I'm now going to add another point. So a point in here, and this is going to be this length here divided by 2, so 13mm there. And we can do the same, we can take this point and that center point and place some length. So 13 divided by 2, 6.5, will go in there like so. So what we've done is we've created a number of dimensions in here and roughed out whereabouts all these will go. This is important because the workflow we're looking at for the part design, we have to make each part connect as we go along. So we create the base, and then for this rotate here, we need to first make a pad and then a rotate. We're going to be showing you how to do that in a moment. First of all, we need to figure out this arc here and whereabouts it sits because we haven't got any height here. We can see where this arc will start, which is this point here. So that's place an end point and rim point arc in. Remember, this is still using this just to rough this out. So I'm going to place an end point and rim point, and I'm going to take this point and attach it to this vertical axis here with a point and line constraint. So you've got that there. We can see the diameter of A is 13mm. So A going across here, this is 13mm for this circle. So I can click on that circle and come up to the diameter, and we'll make that 13. So we've got that in there. At the moment it can still move around And we can see that if we place a line from here to here, this will complete the length that we need. So this here, and we've got that ready to go. So this is the arc that describes this in here. Hit the right mouse button to get the mouse pointer back. And basically we've got all the dimensions we need. Now, like what I said before, we could name these up, say base height, and this one base length, etc., and use those as constraint from our other sketches if we want to. But I might just feed off those measurements so we can get an idea of how the model is built up along with this plan. So what I'm going to do is come over and close this now, and you can see we've described that arc there. Now we've got the starts to our sketch, we can start creating some of the geometry. Let's come over to the part design, and we're going to create a new body and create a new sketch. And I'm going to go along the XY plane, this one here, and hit OK. So we're looking down upon the object. Let's get ourselves into position. Let's create our first, which is going to be a rectangle, and we're going to set the length here. These two set length here, and remember we can use the formula if we want to, so we can go back to the sketch constraints and base length 17.5 and hit OK, or we could just use the 17.5 in there. That's it, OK. That's in there. Piece of geometry, and you can see like scrolling in and out, this causes this window to move, so that can be a little bit annoying sometimes. And now I'm going to take these 2 points, so this point and this point, and make them symmetrical with this point using the symmetry constraint. Got redundant constraint, let's click on it and hit the delete button. So we're symmetrical there. We need to set a height, so clicking on this line and set a height. And let's have a look to see what we want. We want this width here, which is 30 millimeters. So click on that and set this to 30 and hit enter. So we've got the starts here of our base. Let's hit close. We've got that there. We can see how it's sitting. Let's come over to the model, come over to the sketch, which is inside this body, and use a pad. We know it's padding 3 millimeters, or we could use expression button on the end, the formula button, and enter that in. But I'm just going to go 3 millimeters there and hit OK. Let's bring this back in and have a look to see what we got. So we've got that there, and if I hide that, we can see how that sits upon there. Now I'm going to tackle this loop. So I'm going to place a sketch upon this face. Make sure we select this face. There we go. So just select that top face and create a new sketch. Now we're going to place a profile upon here, which is basically just the circle. So we're looking at this circle here of the profile of the loop. So click on the circle and attach it to this line, like so. We know the diameter of this is 5 millimeters. So let's set a diameter of 5 mil. I'm going to attach a point to here. So using this create point, and I'm going to attach the point to the circle. This allows me to constrain this point to this point here. Let's first hit escape and also attach this point to this line. So this line, horizontal line going here with a point on line constraint. So if I move that point, the whole lot moves. So we know the width, which is 13 divided by 2, so 6.5. Or we could pull in this geometry here. But the thing you have to be wary about is that this sketch is outside the body. So if we're going to pull in the geometry, we need to move this sketch inside so it can be referenced. So just be aware of that. If I try to use the link external geometry here and try to pull in this, you can see that if you look down to the bottom left, the object belongs to another body, can't link unmade sketch edge 1. Let's press the right mouse button to get the pointer back, and what I do is take this sketch and bring it inside this body, so it's there now. That means when I pull this geometry in, I can actually do it. So I can click on the external geometry, and you can see we can highlight that line now and bring that in. But I know the length between here and here is the 13 millimeters divided by 2, so the 6.5. So this length here. Place the length 6.5. So that's sitting there. So we've got our profile now of our object. Go into the task, and what we'll do is we'll hit close. Click on the button, hit close, and we've got the circle ready to pad and revolve. We're going to use a revolve for this. But the problem is that we need to know how far to bring this profile up. So we do need a pad first because we're building this from the bottom upwards. So if you think about it, we need to have these all connected. But we also need this revolve. Now what I suggest doing is taking this profile, raising it up to be in line with this point. And then we can pad to this surface and then use the same profile to revolve around this arc. Let me show you how that's done. We first need to understand how far away from the base the profile needs to be. So let's come into our reference sketch, and we've got this length here. And if you look, we've taken account the height of the base here. So we really need to split this. Let's add a split. So I'm going to use the split tool, split edge. We'll come up to sketch, sketch geometries, and split edge, and place a split in here. I'm going to hit escape to get the mouse pointer back, and we're looking at this point, which is the 3mm point, and this one, and we'll place those in line using the constraint horizontally. So now we know that this line here is going to be on the base, sitting on that base there. So we get a vertex on that base and a vertex at the top here. Therefore we can take this line, place a height in here, like so, 5.5, and set this to reference. We've got this height in here, and let's hit OK. If we didn't set this to reference, it will become redundant. We can name this if we want to add it to the formula, but I now know that this is 5.5, so I can use that in my model. Let's hit close. So come over to hit the close button, and we can see we've got this point and this point at the top. So now I can take my profile sketch, which is this one, and we'll quickly rename that to profile. Now let's come down to the attachment, because that's the very first property we have. We've got the placement here, which will be read only. Come down, we have the attachment first, and we look at the position, and we're looking at the Z, and we set this to 5.5, and that places that there. Let's quickly save this, and now what we'll do is take this profile and create the revolve and the pad. We can't create the revolve first, because if we try to do that, click on the profile and create the revolve, it's going to allow us to do this because it connects up to the base, but we will only want 90 degrees. And you can see it's disappeared and it won't take, so let's cancel that. What we need to do is first pad this to make a connection to this base. So click on the profile, click on the pad, and we're going to go reverse. So that reverses that down to that base. You can see the length there is 10mm. And what we'll do is drop down the dimension and go to first. That'll bring that up to that first face there. Or even up to face and select the face. Then we have the connection there. Let's hit OK. So we have our pad now, this one here. If we open this up, we've got the profile inside. Click on the profile and press the space bar to show the profile, to show you whereabouts it sits. We can now create the revolve along this arc. So click on the profile and then come up to part design, and it's an additive feature and revolve, or we just use the revolve from the toolbar. We're looking along the vertical sketch axis and we'll set this to 90 and click off. So that's placed that revolve in there, and we'll hit OK. We just create one half of the model. We're going to tackle the holes on this object now. So these holes here. Now I have realized that I've missed out some of the dimensions on this plan. So I will update those plans and you'll get something like this with those dimensions in there. And you can see I've created this in Tech Draw, and I'll export this out so the material you'll have will have those dimensions on. So this hole is 5mm away from this edge, and also the inner diameter is 3mm, and we've got the chamfer that brings it up to 5mm there. So 1mm chamfer will bring that up to 5mm. Let's add that to our model. To do that, we click on this face. Just make sure that face is selected, nothing else, and create a sketch. And let's start bringing in the hole by creating a circle. I'm going to hit escape, and I'm going to add the diameter to that hole of 3mm. Also going to bring in this point here to set that 5mm away from that edge using the external geometry, and click on that point. And we'll take this point and this point, set a length of 5mm, and do the same from this point to this point, and do a height of 5mm. So we've got those dimensions in there. We're now going to take a copy of this and place it over here and create the necessary constraints against that. So select that circle, and we're going to come up to Sketch, Sketch Tools, and use Symmetry. But first of all, we need to select the circle and use this line. So click the circle, click the line, and if you've got it on the toolbar, it'll be here as Symmetry, and that places the symmetry of that circle over here with the constraint against it. Now we need to constrain it, so we can use this point and place vertical constraint that keeps those in lines, so it won't move left or right, but it will move up and down. So we need to bring in, by using the external geometry tool, this point and set a height between these two, and set that to 5mm. That's fully constrained now. Let's hit close. Those circles are in there, which are going to create holes. Make sure it's selected and create our pocket. Dimension of 5mm. Let's just change this and go to first. That'll bring that up to the first face that it counters, and hit OK. Now let's add some finishing in here, which will be the chamfers and the fillets. So I'm going to click on this circle and come up to Part Design, apply a dress up and chamfer that, and we want a 1mm chamfer, and hit OK. Let's do the same for the other one, but we can add that to the current chamfer. So double click on it and then add an edge and add this one here, and hit OK. So we've got both chamfers under one chamfer there. We now need to add the fillet. So we look here, we can see we've got this radius here of 4mm. Let's click on this line, and this time we can add it from the toolbar. This will be in the apply dress up again, but we're just going to use the fillet. You can see that's filleting off that edge, and we want a radius of 4mm. Let's add another edge and take this edge over here as well, and hit OK. So we've just cleaned this up. We can see we've got a fillet that runs all the way along here as well, and this just looks like a 1mm fillet. There's no dimensions of this fillet in here, but if we look at this chamfer, we can see that this line and this line are round about the same. So that's select all the edges, control select them all. And then come up to part design, apply a dress up feature and go for the fillet. 1mm, that's filleted those off all around there, let's hit OK. So now we come to the point in the project where we need to mirror this. I'm going to use the part design, apply pattern and mirrored. From here we need to select the features that we're going to mirror. Now this only happens if we've got nothing selected. If I select something, such as this pad, and this time we'll use the toolbar, you can see we've just mirrored the pad. So we have to add each of the features in this list. So let's select the other pad, and you can see that's been added there. And add feature, and select the next one. Let's just cancel this and select all the features that we want to mirror. For that, make sure nothing's selected, use the mirrored, and select all the features. Now you may hit a problem when we do this, and you might get a transformation problem which you'll have to fix. So we've got that now, we've got this red object here and it's saying one transformed shape does not intersect support. And this could be down to which plane we've selected here. We've got the vertical sketch axis, so we're mirroring over this plane here, which is fine. There's nothing wrong with that, so that's okay. And we can change this if we wanted to. But we've got to find out what the problem is. We saw before that just mirroring the pad, the second pad and the revolution was absolutely fine. And it looks like we've got a problem with the fillets or the chamfer. So let's add the pad, the second pad, the revolution and the pocket and use the mirror, which is absolutely fine. Let's add a feature, come back to the model and click the chamfer. And straight away we have a problem there. Now I could look into this and find out what it is and spend some time trying to figure out a solution to this, or we could take a different approach. Let's go into task and cancel. So I'm going to come down and actually, instead of finishing in the part design, because this is the last option that I want to do, just the mirror of the fillet, I can use, say, the part workflow. I'm going to take that fillet and I'm just click it and come to part and mirroring. And we're mirroring over a plane. So let's have a look at our planes. Well, look this way, we got the Z and X. So we're mirroring over this way. So we're going to be mirroring over the ZY plane here. This one here, so you can see Z and Y. So change this to YZ and hit OK. That's mirrored now. So now we've got the fillet and we've changed workflows. We've gone from part design to part, and this is fine because we're just finishing this off. This is our last actions that we're going to do. We come into this fillet, expand it out, we can see the fillet there and our mirrored fillet. So we can take these two and either create a part compound and make compounds, so those compounds together, or we could boolean and union those two together like so. If we look down, we've got the fusion and this refinement. Let's bring this down. Doesn't matter. This will just get rid of this middle line here. So we've got our finished object. There is another way as well. So let's get rid of that fusion. So I'm going backwards, get rid of the fillet mirror. So we're back to that fillet and we're going to stay in the part design workbench. Got that fillet there. And I'm going to delete that fillet and this one and the chamfer. And I'm going to use the pad, the second pad, the revolution and the pocket and mirror those. That's mirrored absolutely fine. Let's hit OK. And now we can finish this. So we can add the chamfers by clicking on all of the circles, and we'll add a 1mm chamfer to all these, like that, 1mm, okay, and then clicking these edges. So I'm control selecting all the edges. So I'll show you a number of ways of getting around the problems, and use the fillet, and we know that's a 4mm fillet. Let's double check that. So come over to here and we can see the 4mm fillet there, and hit OK, and then we can fillet round the outside. Now at this point we've got this fillet here. We can refine this if we want to. So this is the last action. It's not actually the fillet, it's just the action in there. And I've just refined that. That means I've got all these edges that I can control select and go all the way around, like so. Control selected all those and add the fillet around there and hit OK. So we've got those there. And we're still in the part design workflow. We haven't broken out into a part. We've kept it all in the same workflow. So if you come across problems like that, then that's a way of solving that issue. You may want to spend the time in there trying to figure out the problem, but at the end of the day, sometimes we just want a quick model out there and we need to change our approach slightly, or even bring in a different workbench just to finish it off. So with a mirror, you can just bring in that part workbench just to mirror that off, and that's your object done. So let's change this workflow. We're going to be using an additive pipe. That's quite easy to do. I'm not going to go through the full workflow. I'm just going to delete the fillet, and this fillet, the chamfer, the mirrored, the pocket, the sketch here we can keep, but it's the same process anyway, so we're going to delete that, and I'm going to delete the revolve and the pad. So we've basically gone back to where it was before. This profile sketch, I'm going to lower that back to the surface. So we come into the attachment, this one here. This is the first one for that profile because it's attached onto this surface, remember? And we drop down to the Z and we can zero that out to place it on there. Now if we select that profile, and we're going to use this as a path to sweep across, go to part design, create an additive feature and additive pipe. It's taken the profile, which is this one. It's now going to ask for an edge. So if we come down to path to sweep along, let's add an edge and click on this line, click add an edge again and click on this arc. Let's hit OK. Now we've got that in there, and we can add the circles for the holes. But just to quickly show you, if I click this pad and this additive pipe, our mirror still works. So our mirroring means that we've got something like this, which is basically the same as what we had before, but we've taken a different approach, arguably a much easier approach to do this object. But what I've done is given you two ways in the part design to allow you to create that object. Now if you was creating this in, say, the part workbench, then there's multiple ways you can do this. So let's have a look at a part workbench flow for the same object. I've converted back just to the normal sketches. So we've got the base, the profile, and this guide sketch here. So doing the base is quite easy. We click on the sketch for the base, and instead of a pad, we use the extrude, and that was 3mm. So that's done. Now we've got to place our profile. We're going along the same revolve workflow as before, and we know from that sketch we've got to move this up 5.5mm from the actual base. So click on that profile, come into the placement. It's not attached. With placement, if it's attached to something, it'll be attachment, so position, and move this up to 5.5. And it was a bit further actually, to 8.5, so adding the 3 onto there. There we go. Now we need to extrude that. So click on the profile and we're going to extrude that. Now the good thing here is we can select an edge. So I want to extrude along this edge here. So click on along edge and hit select and select that edge there and hit OK. And that's gone downwards. If it doesn't go downwards and goes upwards, well, we can click on that extrude and come down and you'll see a reverse here and set this to true. We'll allow multiple bodies in the part workbench, so that will be a valid model. Next, I'm going to take that profile which is inside that extrude, click the profile, press the spacebar so you can see it there, and we'll use a revolve. We're going to revolve this along the Y axis. So click on Y and hit OK. You see that's revolved along there. I haven't added or removed any angle to that. So let's come into the revolution and set this to 90 degrees, like so. You can see we've got a problem there, and that's because the center is off. So we have a bit of an issue. So the best idea here is to find some kind of reference to revolve this around. Let's delete that revolve. Click on it and hit delete. And come into this profile and double click it. And what we need to do is basically revolve around this line here. So we need a line really to revolve around. So I'm going to close that. And I'm going to duplicate this sketch. So come out to edit, duplicate selection, and double click on that profile. I'm going to delete the circle and add a line. So the line that goes along here, connected to those, got a redundant constraint which we can click on and delete. And also I'm going to delete this one and this point because we don't need those. If I hit close now, you can see we've got a line along the same plane as this circle. That's the reason why I've duplicated it, because it takes the placement with it. Look at the position, 8.5 there. Now when we click on that profile, this one here, and use the revolve, we can select the reference and select this line and come down and change the angle to 90 degrees and hit OK. At the moment it's gone the wrong way, so click on the revolve and we can set this to -90 and hit enter. And now we're following the right curve. So we've got that curve running up there. Now for the holes in here, well, we could add that to our sketch. So we're looking for the sketch for the extrude. And if I click on this extrude, this one here, this sketch, let's add them to here. And we'll create a circle, and this was 3mm. And we'll set the distance from here to here, 5mm, and the same for the height. So we're doing exactly the same thing, but I'm adding it to the sketch instead of creating another sketch on that face there. Symmetrical across there, and we'll keep those in line, that one and that one in line, and we also need a height to finally constrain this all down of 5mm and close that. That creates those holes. So now we've done that, that's joined these all together. So I'm going to click the extrude, control click the other extrude, so you can see them highlighted here, and control click revolve. Now we need to come to part and boolean those together with a union, so those are all one fusion. Let's do our finishing before we mirror this. So we take these circles, control click them, part chamfer, and you can see the edges that have been selected. So we've got 2 edges there, 1mm chamfer, okay that, and then we'll select these edges, control select those, part fillet, 4mm on the radius of fillet, there we go, and then we want to take these and we'll just fillet these off as well with a 1mm fillet, and we can come up to here and use the fillet on there for 1mm, and okay. So we've got that there. Click the fillet, part, mirroring over the YZ plane. So you can see the YZ plane here, and we want to flip it over that one. Yeah, okay. Now we've got our mirrored part this side, which will be embedded inside this mirror here. So we've got the original fillet and the mirror. We need to control click those and either do one of 2 things. We can make a compound, or we could use the boolean and union those together in a single fusion. We now got this one, and if we want to, we can refine this to true to get rid of this line here, because this is 2 faces on the same plane that can be joined together. And we finished our model. So that's how you would do that in the part and part design workbench. We're going to be looking at the part workbench in more detail in our next video, where we go through the boolean operations in there and show you some ways of using that in your modeling. If you like what you're seeing, please subscribe to the site. I also have a Ko-Fi or a coffee site that you can donate to if you so desire, and that's at ko-fi.com/MANG0. I also run a Patreon where you can subscribe and get extra content, and that's at www.patreon.com/MangoJellySolutions. Any money that's kindly donated will be used to expand the channel. Thanks a lot for watching and subscribing, and I'll see you again soon.